Hello, hello, buenas noches. Good evening, everybody. How are we doing? Okay, trying to get my lighting situated. So glad you're joining me live tonight. Actually, guys, this might be the last Wednesday night live for about 4 weeks or so. On Friday, the day after tomorrow, I am headed down to Oaxaca for Day of the Dead festivities. And from there, I will go to Argentina. And from there, we have a Reclaim the Retreat retreat in El Salvador. And so I'm not going to be back or around a place where I have reliable internet probably for about a month. So um, we'll see. I'm hoping that maybe I can go live next week from Oaxaca, but I make no promises. So I'm so glad that y'all are joining me tonight. Um, in case I don't get to see y'all for a month, okay, Queen P, eat some pastries at Carmelita's in Oaxaca, okay? Because that's mainly what I do is I go and I eat pastries when I'm there. I've never been to Carmelita's, but I will add that to the list. Okay, so glad y'all are here with me tonight. Tonight we are going to be talking about money and building wealth. As those of you who've been following the channel know, I am a financial educator who has kind of made it my job to help Black women master their money so that they can live the life of their dreams. And so on this channel, we talk about money, we talk about travel, we talk about moving abroad and where all those things intersect. So if those are topics of interest to you, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that the next time I go live or I upload a video, you'll be the first to know. Let me raise this down. Okay, I think that's better. So I told you about me, but if you're new here, I did not introduce myself. My name is Adelia Borchade, and if this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome to the Picky Girl Nation. We're very happy that you are here. Okay, so it's not just me tonight. We have a guest, and I'm going to bring her on. Hey, there we go. There we go. Can you hear me, Tiffany?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Hey, hey, okay, everybody. Our guest tonight is Tiffany of Grace Realty Group, and she's here because we want to talk about building wealth, growing your net worth, all of those things. I know y'all often hear me talk about how investing in the US stock market was what allowed me to retire from teaching back in 2020 when I was 45 years old. That has been my preferred method of growing my wealth and increasing my net worth, but by no means is it the only way to do that. And so I thought Tiffany would be a great guest to have on to have that conversation as we talk about the role that real estate can play in there. Tiffany, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tiffany Vendries. I am a licensed real estate broker and also a landlord in South Florida. And I've been investing and I've been licensed as a realtor since 2016. And I've been investing in real estate since 2010.
Okay. All right. And I mean, really, the first thing that comes to mind for me is how did you end up here where you are? Was real estate something that was always on your radar? Like growing up, I knew there were people who owned houses. I knew there were landlords, but like it never occurred to me as something to pursue, even though ultimately I ended up being a landlord for a brief, not brief enough period. So I am curious how you ended up on this track.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, all of my aunts, my parents, my uncles, they were homeowners. And so, even aside from real estate investing, even aside from being a landlord, even just being a homeowner is another great way to build wealth through real estate. And then on top of that, my aunt had rental properties, and she still has rental properties in Connecticut. And so over time, as I was growing up, I learned from her the value of and the return that you can have when investing in real estate.
Okay. And so you said something interesting at the end there about the value and the return that you can have. I just wrapped last Friday. I host a Get Started Investing challenge that is specifically geared toward novice stock market investors and people who maybe have technically been investing in the US stock market primarily through their employers, but they don't really understand what's going on there or what they're invested in and that sort of thing. And so, as part of that, specifically, I host this challenge for Black women as they are sort of like the least invested group. They've got the least amount of money in the market. They have the smallest portfolios. They are the least likely to invest, so on and so forth. And so, hearing you talk about the value that and the growth potential in real estate, it's not something that I talk about a whole lot here on this channel. So, could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you even take, let's say, the Florida market, that's my market. I'm in Florida. In 2010, when I moved here, the price of a single family home, the price of a townhouse, where in you could find a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom home for, let's say, 115, for a townhouse, for a single family, 150K. Now, fast forward to today, here we are 13 years later, those same homes have tripled. So you can't find anything in Palm Beach County or in South Florida, a single family 3 bedroom, you can't find anything for less than 400,000. So that person who invested in, let's say, in that time frame has gained a net, assuming they haven't taken out more loans, they've gained a net worth of $300,000. And that person may not necessarily have an income where they are able to save $300,000. So let's say that home for $100,000, you can have a job that was paying you $40,000, that was paying you $50,000, $60,000. You could have a job, an income that is of average, American income, average American household income, and still, through the power of real estate, still be able to save as much as someone who is earning a lot more. And it's almost like forced savings. So sometimes with the stock market, people invest outside of the employer, because with the employer there's not really an opportunity. There are, but if they're doing self-investing, if they're doing the Fidelity and the Vanguard, which I love, and I also do in addition to the real estate, but sometimes it's a lot easier to take that money out when there's something that happens. And so with real estate, it's almost like a forced discipline. There's a lot of steps to sell, as opposed with your stock market. If you don't have that same discipline, you might be selling when the market goes down or whatever, when really you should just leave it and forget it.
Very true. And, like, I think a lot of this is two sides of the same coin because, yeah, there's that forced savings element of it, but then at the same time, you know, real estate can be illiquid if you're doing it the traditional way, which I think is primarily the area that you focus in on. Um, you sent me uh, something from the Fed about gaps in income and the gaps in wealth that persist across racial lines.
Right.
And, you know, all my life, I have been hearing about that. And it continues, you know, things, as much as they change, a lot of them stay the same. And how do you see a role for real estate investment or in leveling that to a certain degree?
Yes. So there is the study from the New York Times said that the average African American, Black American household has a net worth of 44,000, and the average White American household has a net worth of 285,000. So that was not one, two, three, four, five, but it was a six times difference in the net worth from one household to the other household. And there is also studies that average the homeowners among that same demographic are larger. So there are more homeowners in the white Caucasian demographic than there are in the African American, Caribbean, Black demographic.
Okay. Now, you you have an interesting story, I think, where you were able to increase your net worth in a fairly short period of time through the purchase of real estate. Am I correct?
Yes. Uh-huh. So I moved here. I moved to Florida in 2010, and I purchased a townhouse. And then 5 years later, that townhouse had doubled. And so I sold it, and I wanted to go into um, real estate investing. So I sold it, and then I purchased three multifamily properties. So that what I learned through that experience was that was not the avenue, that was not the property type for me and my skill sets. So with multifamily in the region of the country where I live, it's primarily low income. In other parts of the country, you can have a multifamily property like and a duplex in DC or in New York or in Brooklyn. Like there might be in a neighborhood which is of different socioeconomic status. But where I live, the multifamily properties were in this particular area, and that was not the strategy for me. So I got my license so that I can be more aware of the all of the things that you see behind the scenes, all of the data that's on the MLS that only the realtor or the broker has access to. So I would have the ability to go to showings and not have to coordinate schedules. So I could see, I wanted to have that data. And also, if I was selling and buying, it only made sense to get my license. So I got my license, sold those properties, and then I purchased a condo, which was easier for me as a woman to maintain. There's no roofing issues, there's no landscaping issues, there's no the maintenance is lessened. And then I also moved into the middle income market.
Okay, so was it the townhouse that really was not the kind of property that fit you, or was it the subsequent multifamily units that you bought?
It was multifamily units that I got. The townhouse was fine. I sold it so that I could do more in real estate.
Okay. And I think that's a common path that a lot of people take. Now, I'm curious when, because I am a firm believer that all real estate, or just because you buy a house to live in, doesn't make it an investment if that's not the mindset that you're going into it with. If you're, because what you're choosing to be like your personal reference versus what is going to rent well can be very, very different. So I'm curious, when you bought the townhouse, going into it, were you thinking this is like a starter home? What was the thought process when you bought that particular property?
When I bought my townhouse, it was to live in. And I also rented out a few of, it was 3 bedrooms. So I rented out 2 bedrooms. They call it house hacking, and another form of real estate investing.
Absolutely. If I had it all to do over again,
Uh-huh.
I would do house hacking. I think I'm at a point now in my life that it's more than I want to deal with. But if I had to do it all over again, I think I'd absolutely house hack. And so you ended up in gaining so much equity and increasing your net worth when with the purchase of that townhouse. 5 years later, you sell it, you go into multifamily. So let's spend a little time there, because I've had several guests on this show who talk about that being a goal of theirs as far as part of their wealth building journey. So I'd like to know, okay, so you're thinking, I want to be an investor, and is multifamily the obvious way to go, or is that what you were thinking at the time?
So when I ran the numbers, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and I looked at a condo versus a townhouse versus a multifamily, what became clear was that the multifamily would produce more income, because your townhouse, you have one person paying the rent. So maybe the mortgage is 1,500 and it rents for 2,000. So that's it. And there's also more risk, because if that one person doesn't pay, then you have no income coming in. So when I did the analysis, I said, okay, look at this here. There's going to be multiple people for the same property. So if one person isn't paying, it mitigates risk. I still have two more. And also, it's more overall. So even if they're paying less per unit, it's still more overall than the one person is paying for for a townhouse. So that was my rationale for those two reasons: increase income, mitigate risk. Now, this is the part I was not prepared for. That the multifamily, they have the ones that I invested in and the ones in this part of the country, they were older, and the maintenance on them was just ridiculous. Like, it was the roofing issue, the plumbing issue, the tenants behind on rent. Um, it was just way too many maintenance and tenant issues. With a single family, a townhouse condo, one person, when you purchase it and there's one person living there, you just wait till their lease runs out, and then you can find a new person, or if you like them, you can renew. With multifamilies, you're doing that times three, and it's like, well, you're inheriting three now. Well, what if they're all bad tenants? What if they're all behind? That does come out through the purchase process. It comes out through the tenant estoppel, but sometimes people leave out information, or sometimes yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. I had a single family home. It's kind of it was the starter house, built a custom house. So it was like, oh, just keep that and rent it out. And the juice was not worth the squeeze for me. Anybody who has watched this channel and has heard me talk about that, but again, that's me. Somebody said, oh, this black women build melt. That I cannot talk, y'all. Black women build wealth. I read somewhere that 90% of millionaires made their fortune through real estate investing. So while it ain't for me, I'm not going to sit here and tell y'all that, like, oh no, it's not a way to build wealth. It's not a way to grow your net worth. It absolutely is. It just wasn't for me. So hearing you talk about the multifamily situation, did you ever consider having a property management company run it?
So here's the thing that I also didn't know is property managers don't go everywhere. some of them, they have a choice. They can work for in this area with this type of tenant or not. And that particular area with those particular tenants, it wasn't easy to find property managers, and they're not free. So that cost is coming out of the profits. And at that time, the profits needed to go into maintaining the property.
Okay. I think these are the kinds of things that people need to hear, because the folks on TikTok and on Twitter, real estate Twitter, real estate TikTok will have you thinking, oh, it's super simple. You just go buy this property, you hire a property management company, and you just sit back and collect the check. And in a perfect world, I think yes, that is exactly what would happen, but not always.
Right. So the TikTok people will have you believe that's the story, and it can be, but just know that that story is more expensive. That story means that that is a new construction property. It's a property without issues. That means that that tenant is likely a middle income or high income tenant who is paying their rent on time, and this rent price is no issues for them. That's the tenant that's the tenant, and that is and remember, that tenant is going to be attracted to a certain area. So not only do you need a new construction, you need a new construction in an area where that tenant wants to live. This is an expensive dream.
Okay. All right. And so as you are discovering that, like, okay, maybe this is not the particular niche for me. How did you transition into the next stage of your journey here? Did you sell that unit?
Yes, I sold, it was 3 properties, 7 units, and I sold those 3 properties. And then I started to look. Okay, so when I first did my analysis, I was looking at income and I was looking at risk. So I started to add, okay, but I also need to look at the profile of the tenant. I want to look at where are the areas that the people who I want to rent to want to live. And so, and then how much are the properties in that area? And then how much are the rent in that area? And then how much would be the mortgage if I put down 20-25%? So focusing on the area where I wanted to interact.
Given the experience that you had with this property, with these tenants, why didn't you just be like, nope, this ain't it. Let me find something else to do?
Yeah, because I had already experienced what it can do. So remember, it wasn't my first time. So with my townhouse, I had already experienced 100 grand growth in 5 years. So, and that's not something at the time or even now that I could save. So it was like, okay, this is the way that I can build wealth. This is the way that I can get to millionaire status. I can still be a millionaire without having to actually take money from my paycheck and put it in the bank. I can do this way. It didn't work out with this, but I am sure that it will work out. I've seen it. I've seen it for other people. I've seen it for myself, my personal experiences, my family experience. I've seen it. So I got something wrong. I'm going to fix a couple of things in this formula. And you know what? I'm going to add some more variables. I only had 2. You know what? I need 10. So now I got the formula right. Okay, now we're good.
And you just said something there about, like, in the 4 years that you had the townhouse, you made 100 grand, and you can't save that unless you're already making a substantial amount of money. And this is one of the things I talk about a lot, that for the folks like my age and older, we were always taught that we needed to save. You need to save your money. Saving is a short-term thing. That's what you do to meet short-term obligations. Saving is not going to grow your net worth significantly. Saving alone is not going to allow you to be work optional by the time you're 60. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because it gives me another opportunity to reiterate that investing is necessary, whether you're doing it through the stock market, whether you're doing it through uh, real estate, or some combination. It doesn't have to be an either or thing. It can be a combination, because you want the diversity in your investment portfolio, but only investing is going to give you that kind of return on your money. And as you've just shown with your experience, there's always going to be some risk, because no risk, no return, you know. So I think it's good that people hear that and get reminded of it. Okay. Okay. So you said that you decided, like, okay, if I'm going to be doing this, I need to get my license. Would you recommend that for everybody?
I would recommend getting a realtor's license for anyone who wants to or is thinking about investing in real estate. There's so much that you learn from doing the job, from being a realtor, from being in the business, from showing homes to even contracts, to working with title companies, to working with real estate attorneys, to working with other investors, to for networking, meeting plumbers, meeting contractors, meeting inspectors. Is so you build your network and you build your knowledge. So I definitely recommend anyone who is interested in it. Like, some people don't like that aspect of the business, which is fine. For those people, then network and meet a realtor who is licensed in your state, who you trust.
And so, okay, I need to ask some clarifying questions here. Are we talking about becoming a realtor or an agent? Because I believe there is a difference between those two distinctions.
So a realtor is a person who is licensed and is a part of their local their local state and national realtors association. So you could be licensed and you could have passed the exam, but you didn't yet join the board. You're an agent. Once you join the board and you are a part of the local, state, and national realtors association, you're a realtor.
Okay. And you're saying that if you're going to invest in real estate, you should aim at becoming a realtor, or is being an agent sufficient?
So, in order to see the data that you would need to see, you need to be part of your local MLS. So you would need to be a realtor.
Okay. All right. And how do you become a realtor?
Every state is different, but you start out with a course. You could go either online or in person. And once you take the course, there's a final exam at the end, and you have to pass it with a certain percentage. Then, once you pass the course, then you get a certificate and you take your state exam. Once you take your state exam and pass it, then you join a brokerage. You have to be licensed with a brokerage in order to join your local MLS, your local Realtors Association.
I tried to watch, what is that show? It was on Netflix. The real estate show with the black ladies.
In Tampa.
Yes.
I think it's Selling Tampa.
Okay. And I think I only made it through one episode, but there was all of this drama about they were working for the one girl's brokerage, and she was like, well, this is what y'all are gonna have to pay me. And they were like, but I'm closing all these deals, and why I gotta pay you all of this? So that's what immediately popped in my head when you said that. Is a show like that
realistic?
Yeah.
So you watched the show, but you couldn't get through it. I watched the whole season. I didn't see one closing. Did you see a closing?
No.
Closing. I like the show. I'm not trying to say I like the women. I like the show. Very entertaining. I didn't see any closings. I'm not saying they don't close. I'm just saying it wasn't on the show.
and that could be an editing decision, but I have heard someone make a similar comment or observation about selling Sunset. Like, do they actually sell houses? So, okay. I was curious about that. Um, all right, so let me ask you this. The vast majority of the folks who watch this channel are Black women. Why, as a Black woman, why should they consider, and maybe we already answered this, why should they consider real estate investment?
So they should consider it as part of their overall portfolio and as part of their investment strategies, as part of getting you from where you are to your financial independence goals. That should be something in there, especially depending on your market. It can be a tool for multiplying the savings that you have now.
Okay.
And I do want to add, when you are investing, to don't use your emergency funds. Okay, that's when you're saving and you're saving for a goal. Maybe you're saving for the goal of a down payment, and you're saving for the goal of investing. There needs to be your emergency fund, and then separate from that would be your saving for a down payment. Don't use your emergency funds to buy a house.
Why? I mean,
Because
I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway.
because anything can happen. So, especially if you're wanting to be a landlord or an Airbnb host or any number of things, what that means is that you still have another place where you are paying rent or paying a mortgage. So what that means is that you're going to have your bills, your housing bills, your car bills, your life bills, and you're going to have bills for this property, your mortgage, your taxes, your property insurance, your HOA, things that people don't always know about, even after they've purchased a home, which I didn't understand how you purchased a home and you didn't know like there was all of these other things, fees and yearly things. But to the point, so what happens if there is a car accident? You need your emergency funds here. You can't move it to this investment. Your emergency funds are not the same as your investments. Now, you could put them in something that returns like a high yield savings account, but it have to be something where you don't get penalized for going into the account, and something with no minimums, and something where it's growing 4 or 5%, but you have access.
Okay. All right. So if somebody's watching this conversation we're having tonight and they are intrigued and they would like to get started investing, what would you say are the first steps that they need to take?
Okay, so you want to get started in investing. If other than getting your license, the other thing that you can do is you can Google Real Estate Investors Association. It's called REIA, REIA, and there will be meetings, hopefully local to where you live, where you can go. Sometimes you find them on Meetup. Otherwise, you can just Google or ask a realtor. You can definitely Google a realtor, and maybe they can be able to direct you to a realtor's, not a realtor, but a real estate investors association meeting. And there you can get some of the same contacts that you would as being a realtor, because they go there, like a plumber, a contractor, a roofing contractor. They're going to these meetings to meet investors. So they want clients. As a roofing contractor, they want people who need their work, to need their roof done. But not only people who need their roof done, people who need it done multiple times a year. Because if you're an investor, you might have multiple properties, or you might have it's a better client for them. So that's why they go to those meetings, and you can meet that same network of people. So I would definitely go go to those meetings, and also reading investment books or going on investment blogs like Bigger Pockets, and you can learn there as well.
Okay. All right. There was a question that I am curious about your answer to, but I'm trying to decide, do I want to go to the questions yet, or do I want to stick with my questions for right now? Okay. So we talked about how one would get started. As soon as you said check out blogs and something else, and I thought, okay, but how do I tell what's a scam and what isn't? Because folks be out here scamming.
Yeah,
Like,
I just heard about a scam in New York from a DJ that was taking money from people and then telling them that they got investment property in Patterson, New Jersey, and then he
oh
did it to
no, okay, well wait, but it's a whole thing. The
yeah,
guy, the guy,
Evans. She just
yeah, the guy, there basically what the concept was, we're gonna flip these houses and you can give us the money to flip the house, and then when we sell it, because we're selling it for so much more, you will get paid out this. I was just, before we did this, I was just watching Stephanie on the YouTube channel Wine and Chill. She is a former lawyer who likes to dig into various legal cases, and this is the case she was talking about. And I think oh boy has bought something like 500 properties, and not a single person has even recovered their initial investment. Maybe there, because basically it was a giant Ponzi scheme. When somebody would be like, but hey, you haven't sold that house in New Jersey, he'd be like, well, I don't have all the money now, but like you gave me 200 grand, here's 20 grand. So there's a handful of people that got money like that, but there are lots of people who has given this man hundreds of thousands of dollars and ain't never seen a penny from him. The properties, I believe, are like all in his name. It's wild. So I guess I was gonna say I like to look at the good in people, but that would be a lie. I think everybody be scamming. So, and I think it's that with kind of this new breed, it is people who, that's what they set out to do from the beginning. It's not like, oh, I saw an opportunity where I could maybe pad my pocket with a few extra $1,000. Like, people cook up entire business concepts with the whole goal of scamming somebody out of their money. And I would imagine, as this example points to, that it could happen quite easily in real estate. So are there things that we could look out for? Any advice on how we could avoid scammy situations?
Yeah, I would recommend never giving a individual money directly. Okay, never. And with the things that he was doing or that he was proposing to do, fix and flip, those are things you can do on your own. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your, if you're saying I don't have the skills to find out how much it would take to renovate a bathroom. I don't know how much it would be to renovate a kitchen. I don't know how much it would be to do the roof. If somebody quotes me 10,000, somebody quotes me 20,000, I have no idea. I don't know. So I would rather somebody else do it. If that's you, this dumb fix and flip is not for you. Okay? Don't do it. Just don't do it. What you can do is you can don't do it. Okay, that's what I would say. Don't do fix and flip if you have any concerns like that. If you want to get into it, start small. Start with something that doesn't need a lot of work. So maybe it needs new carpets. Maybe it needs paint. Maybe it needs new flooring. Maybe you can replace the window. Okay, start small, and then you can grow up. Right? You can scale up. And I would say that you would want to get your information from a licensed contractor. Contractors are licensed with your state. So you can contact multiple licensed contractors and get multiple quotes. And over time, you will figure out where if you get one that's an outlier, five, or not five, but two, three people are saying it's going to be 7,000, and this dude over here is talking about 27,000, 30,000. You're like, no, you're trying to rip me off. Or if you don't even feel comfortable being the person that's in contact with the contractors, that's when you can partner with one person and you're still heavily involved. I'm not saying to outsource the job to somebody and they will give you returns. I'm saying you can partner with someone who has the experience that you don't have. So maybe they have experience in working with contractors. And I don't mean partner with just anyone. I mean partner with someone who has complementary skills and you trust them and they have a history of this and they can say, I did this property right here, I fixed this and this, and here I bought it for this much. They can give you data and you can verify this data. You can go to your county tax records website and you can say you bought this property right here. This is public data. The homeowner information is public data. You can look and say, you bought it? Well, let me go look it up. Okay, yeah, you did buy it. All right. How much did you spend? Okay, you spent this much. And then how much did you sell it for? You can look at the sales data. You can see how much they bought it for. You can see how much they sold it for. And you can see, well, okay, did they make a profit? Did they lose money? What happened? And you can have that. You can get granular with that, who you're working with, one person, and working with them. That's what I would say about fix and flip. But and fix and flip is very labor intensive, and there's all kind of things that can come up. You can have an inspector who's licensed, who's been doing this for decades. You can have a qualified person inspect the property, but an inspection is a snapshot. It is what that property looks like at the time that they inspected it. 2 weeks later, a water line broke. 2 weeks later, a hurricane hit. 2 weeks later, the AC is broken. That inspector did their job and they're not liable for what happens after the inspection report. And so even when you go through the effort and the due diligence to find the appropriate person who's going to be able to help you, you still got to just be in it, that's in the game. Like you got to be willing to get your hands.
That's what I'm hearing is if you're gonna do this, you got to do it. This is not the kind of investment that you just sit back and collect the money. Like you, and anybody who has ever watched a flipping show, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm skeptical because of my past experiences. Like, yes, what is it? Flip or flop or whatever, where they would make 100, 200 grand on these houses that they would get dirt cheap. But like you said, they'd have often they bought them with no inspection, but once they opened the wall, it's like, oh, look at all the shit we found in here we didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Timing and this whole DJ Envy thing. These are people 5 years later he's not sold a house, flips.
Mm-mm.
Time is of the essence because time is money. So what I'm hearing is for those particular kinds of things, you can't just get distracted by the potential profit. You really have to get involved in the process and be involved is what I'm hearing you say.
You have to get involved in not only the financials, because these people, it seemed like they didn't even ask, how are you going to get this money back? Because there's a cost to purchase, and there's not only the cost of the home, there's the realtor's fee associated with it, there's a title company fee, there is the lien surge, there's the estoppel, there's all kind of fees associated with purchase. Then there's the cost to carry. So like you're paying the loan every month, and the interest on that, and the taxes on that, and the utilities on that, the water, the electricity on that, just to carry the property. Then there's a cost to sell. In addition to the sale price, there's the realtor's fee again. There's the property taxes. There's all of these fees. There's recording fees where you record the title with the county. There are fees everywhere. Okay. And so you need to be cognizant of that, and like almost experienced. That's what you need to be. You need to be experienced in that, and find someone who's experienced in the contracting. Usually not one person is in both. The contractor, they might be really good with their hands and they understand, but they're like, I'm not doing that other stuff you do that.
Yeah. No, there were some fairly big red flags, but I think people get caught up in the potential amount of money that they could make and let that kind of suppress their need to ask detailed questions. Like, okay, if this house in Paterson, New Jersey costs $200,000 or $500,000 and I gave you $2, how many more investors are we talking about? They were saying that for like some of these properties, for $400,000, $500,000 houses, he'd actually taken in millions of dollars for singular properties. So this is not what I'm also hearing you say is, if you are looking for a way to invest and be hands-off, this is probably not the way to go. And anybody promising you that you can just be the money person and be hands-off, you might want to be a little skeptical of that kind of thing.
Correct. And I really think if you have 400,000, at that point you've won. Just put it in the market and let it grow. Okay. what you need 20 grand for? Why would you take that kind of risk when you already have $400,000? No.
Yeah. So that kind of begs two questions. One, who is this not for? Who are the people that are not a good fit for real estate investing?
If you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to your investment, if you are working a full-time job and on top of that you have other responsibilities as a parent, as a caretaker, if you have just maybe 2 jobs, if you don't have the time to dedicate to being educated, and to dedicate to doing due diligence, and to dedicate to market research, and contacting people and building your network, if you don't have the time for that, then primary home ownership, house hacking is perfectly okay and will also build your wealth.
Okay. And I know I said there were 2 questions, and just as quickly that second question left my brain. So we'll see if it comes back. Okay. We had another question here. Let me find it. We had a couple of questions that I wanted to get your take on. I think one of my follow-ups to the previous question was, because I asked, who is this not for? Do you have to be a landlord? And I think you sort of answered that maybe if you don't have the time to dedicate to larger real estate investment, hacking your own house, your primary, that's probably the better way to go. What are your thoughts about REITs?
I think that they are a viable option within a diversified investment portfolio. So if you have your domestic stocks, you have your international stocks, and you have your REITs, go ahead, go do it. I have them. I have them. And so they're not doing great right now, but I am not an investor that sells just because the market is down. And that's really when you shouldn't sell. That's when
Well,
you should.
nobody should. One of the one of the comparisons I use in my investing challenge is, when you have a house and you get it, the tax assessor comes out and has dropped the value of your house. Do you say, "Oh no, my house is losing value. Let me sell it today for less than I paid for it"? You would never do that. Why would you do that in the stock market? But people don't always look at it that way. What
You
do
know,
you think? Go ahead.
to your point where you're saying like people, it's down and then they want to sell, it's coming from a lack of research and a lack of trust. You have to first do your research before you invest. And once you do your research and you decide that this is an investment that you want to invest in, then you have to trust in your research and your decision making that this is just because it's down doesn't mean that you made a mistake. You did your research and you said, no, the S&P 500, it goes up and down. But if you look at this window right here, 10, 20, 30 years, it's going all the way up. So I trust that I did that. So I'm going to stay.
Investments have risks. That's why you have the potential to make so much money. So everybody wants everything to win all the time, and that's just not how it works. Now, there are some folks who look at REITs as a viable option for real estate investing because they don't want to put the time into doing it the traditional way with physical properties. Do you feel like that's a valid way to look at it?
I think it is good to know yourself. So if you're saying I don't have the time and I also don't have the desire, but I do believe that over time real estate has great returns. Some of the properties that are in REITs, it's not the same as your single family that we're buying. It's like your commercial space, it's your public storage, it's your mall. It's space that needs to be rented, and that's going up over time. Even utility space, just the land that they're using. So that I think that's fine if you decide that that other thing is not for me, but I still like real estate.
Okay, cool. Another question for you. F Doctor says, long term, I hope to build on land I own and rent it out when traveling or living elsewhere. I am curious because I hear people say this about, I want to buy some property, but they're buying the undeveloped land as the investment. And as someone who built a house on undeveloped land and knows that, like, you got to bring the utilities in, you got to bring in, like, it's not just like, oh, I bought this land in the middle of nowhere and somebody's magically going to want it. Like, I'm not going to ask necessarily your opinion on this, but is buying undeveloped land, is that a different lane of investing? Are there specific kinds of people that maybe should pursue that route as opposed to the one we've been talking about? Or if you want to give your opinion, feel free.
I think if you have even more time, more time than what we've been talking about before, you're like, yeah, I do that all day, then go ahead and do the undeveloped land, because you have all of the issues that we were talking about before, plus the ones you're bringing up where you have to put in the pipes for water, or put in the plumbing. It's just it's an additional layer, but the other stuff didn't go away.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I can remember having to talk to the concrete contractor and was like, how much does that cost? Like, oh no, we can shave a couple of feet off of that driveway because concrete is the price of gold, you know. We had a question here. What kind of time and financial commitment is needed to become licensed?
Time. So every state is different. In Florida, it's a 63-hour course, and you can do that in person or you can do it online. But 63 hours, and I think they give you a defined time to finish that. Once you start the course, they give you a finite time to finish it. So 63 hours there, and then the test. It's a day. Okay, it's not a huge commitment. And then financial commitment in Florida, if you when you join all three boards, the local association, the Florida Association, and the National Association of Realtors, all three boards are about 700 a year.
Individually,
No, no, no. All
all
three,
together?
yeah, together.
Okay. Okay. And I assume that this is one of the reasons that you would want to be licensed, would that cut down the cost of commissions when you're buying and selling your investment properties?
Yes. So if you are a, a owner, so you're selling your own property, you have a couple of different ways that you can structure the deal, whatever works best for you. Some people pay themselves because they want to use that money elsewhere. Some people say, I'm not going to pay. For me personally, when I sell my personal property, I put 0% commission because I don't want to pay myself to my company and then pay taxes on that. So I just 0% commission. It works out easier for me. And now I'm not paying another realtor. And then you're in control of how much you're paying the buyer's agent. Because if I own it, I'm the seller's agent. So I need a buyer's agent to come to me. You have control over how much you're going to pay that person.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay. Let's see if I had any more of my questions here. We talked about, as investing, we talked about risk, we talked about avoiding scams, options if you don't want to be a landlord. What haven't we talked about that we should?
Well, so I definitely think that in addition to real estate, I don't think you should have 100% of your investment portfolio be within real estate. Like I said, I think you should have an emergency fund for the length of time, depending on the volatility of your employment. If you have a highly volatile industry, then you want more months. If you're average, then you have the 6 months. So you definitely want that. And then in addition to that, you want to contribute to your retirement either through your employer or post tax. Definitely do those. Not Don't sacrifice those in order to save up for real estate. I think this is in addition to emergency fund and your retirement investing.
Okay. And you just said something, to save up to invest in real estate. This is one of the reasons I generally talk about investing in the stock market as opposed to real estate, because there is a slightly higher barrier to entry. How much money are we talking about? I know that there is a difference, or I believe that there is a difference if you're going to finance a property that's going to be your personal reference, your personal residence versus an investment property, how much you need to be able to put down. So how much are we talking about needing to save to get in the door?
Generally speaking, if it's your primary residence, it can be as low as 3.5% for FHA, which is Federal Housing Administration. They have a loan that if you are living in or intend to live in the property, that you can do 3.5% down. That does not apply to investors, because the government said we want to help people who are living in the homes. We want to help people just get, the basic life. They're saying we're not going to help you be an investor. That's not what we're trying to do. So the federal FHA loan is for primary residence. Then if you're an investor, generally it's higher. So it does depend on the type of loan. There's FHA, there's conventional, there's VA, but it's higher because it's more risk for the bank. People are going to, if you lose your source of income, you're going to stop paying on the second house first. You're going to stop paying on the investment first. You're going to do what you can to keep living where you're living. So a loan on an investment property is a riskier loan package. And so therefore, in general, it's a higher down payment.
Okay. All right. There was something you said that made me think of a question. And now I'm struggling to remember what that question was. Do you have any interest in short-term rentals?
None. I know people who do short-term rentals. An agent on my team, she is a Airbnb host. She's a super host. So if you ever need housing here in Palm Beach County, we can be able to provide that. However, it is not for me because of you have all of the things that we just mentioned. A house is a house. So you still have the cost to buy, the cost to carry, the cost to sell. You still have the maintenance. You still have the lawn care, the plumbing. You still have the roof. You still have all of those things. And on top of that, now you have people coming and going dozens of times a year. So it's not like you're dealing with the one tenant and you learn their personality. People are people. So you learn this tenant. You're like, okay, this tenant, she calls me on some stuff that you don't really need to call me, but okay, she pays, and so all right, I'll buy you a door stopper. Fine, you pay your rent. And some people, you get to learn your tenant. With Airbnb, there's such a turnover that it's constant work, and you can hire a cleaning lady, and you can hire a management team. But what if they can't come that day? I don't ever want somebody to tell me that they need me to come. I don't want to come.
I feel you on that. I feel you.
I don't know. I'm okay. No.
Go ahead.
I do need my properties, but it's one time a year. Yeah, and that's if I can't find somebody. So if I can't find somebody in the time, because there's always a cleaning person, but if I can't find them in the time, wait, I want to do a showing on Saturday and today's Thursday. I wanted to clean today. I'm not going to let it sit here on the market because I can't find a cleaning person. Okay, I'll clean it myself. But this is one time a year. But these things can happen with Airbnbs all the time. And that's not an all the time thing. I want that to be a once a year thing.
I think you have, like you're saying, you have to know who you are. I think it is very easy to get sucked in to the potential amount of money you can make, because the Airbnb folks on TikTok all will tell you how you can be raking in all of this money, renting out properties that you don't even technically own, that you're, mortgaged to the hilt on, and what have you. I think it is also, I've always said, I don't need to make all the money. I just want to make some of the money. And I think, yes, short-term rentals, you could make a ton of money, but is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
Like with all that goes into that.
And there's also another factor to remember is that it's seasonal. So with Airbnb, you tend to be in demand the same as a hotel. Holidays, summers, there's a spike in demand for that Airbnb host. And with rentals, you just look at the market and you see what's your market price, and you get a consistent income for the year. Versus with Airbnb, you're going up and down. So when you're doing your analysis, I think with a long-term rental, it's easier. You can calculate, or you can allow for vacancies. You can say, I might have 4 weeks vacancy where I'm turning over, doing showings. We're getting a lease approved. We're going through the HOA. They got to do that approval there. I got to do my background check. So you can allow for a certain amount of vacancy with a long-term rental. With a short-term rental, there's more variance. And for me, I prefer things to be consistent.
I get that. And then, then there are the nightmare stories like the guy in California where the woman has squatted there for, was it like 5 months, and reported him. And so he can't kick her out. and and she's demanding him pay $100,000 for her to move somewhere else.
Mm-mm.
I mean, but there are plenty of people who do it and make lots of money. We have another question here. Is there any benefit to renting out property for government programs?
You mean like the government is paying, like Section 8, where the government is paying the rent?
I don't know. I assume Section 8. If you mean something else, not before 10, let us know.
The benefit there is that you have consistent income coming in. So oftentimes with low income tenants, they may be late, or they may be there may be variance into how much they can pay, when they can pay. Is due on the 1st, but I get it to you on the 10th. I can only get you 60 this time, 600 this time, maybe 200 next. There's all kind of things that you will get to know your tenant, and you will get to know your property, and you'll get to know those things. But with the government programs, they're going to pay you the same amount at the same time every month. So it's less stressful to go through those programs. Now, your property has to be up to code, which is another thing that we didn't even talk about, code violations on properties that you also have to be aware of. But yes, so the government is going to do an inspection of your house, and they're going to make sure that it's fit for living. You make sure that if they're paying the rent for somebody else to live there, they're going to make sure that people can live there. So you have to make sure that your property is sellable, so not sellable as in long term, but sellable as something where people can live there. And then you apply for the programs, and the actual tenant also has to be they also have to be approved for the property has to be approved, and the person has to be approved for the program.
Okay. What trends will affect real estate in the near future, for better or worse? Adults living at home longer, drop in first-time homeowners, student loan forgiveness, freeing up funds, Airbnbs.
So currently with Airbnbs, we are seeing more licensing issues. So the cities are not getting as much money from the hotel tax. And so they're putting more regulations in place to limit Airbnbs. And so that's something that you would have to look into for the city and state in which you are interested in. Another trend that's affecting people across the country are real estate interest rates. So interest rates are much, much higher than they were even a year or two ago. And that is affecting the buyer, and that's affecting the price of the property, and that's affecting demand. There are less people who can afford to buy with these higher interest rates. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing.
I was just, I saw something today where somebody said that they got quoted an 8%. And you shake your head like that. When I bought my first house, I think the interest rate was like 8 something. This would have been 93. No, not 93. 97.
Yeah. It feels unimaginable, because the last 10, 15 years, the last 13 years or so have been record lows. But they've been record lows for so long that feels normal. And so as we're going up, it's like, oh my gosh, 3 times what it used to be, twice what it used to be.
That's true. Nobody asked this question, but I am curious. Are you seeing much? What's the impact that you're seeing from the craze that was going on in 2020 into 2021, where people were paying over asking, with waiving inspection and all of that? Are we to the place now that there is buyer's remorse, or that people can't sell because they paid more than they should have to begin with, and then with the things that you're talking about now, it's like, I can't even find somebody who will take this house that I paid too much for?
In my local market, again, this is South Florida, we in 2020, it was ridiculous because everyone was moving here because of the remote work situation. So they said, if I'm going to get the same pay, if I'm going to get New York money, I'm moving down to Florida where I could be outside. And so exactly what you're saying, which I don't think a lot of people know about, that people were waiving appraisal, which means the bank said that is worth X, Y, and Z. They sent somebody, they hired a certified appraiser, and the appraiser said, this property is worth 450. And the bank says, okay, we're not crazy. So we are not going to give you more than, whatever your loan to value ratio is. So if you have a loan that's 5%, they're like, we're not going to give you more than 95% of 450 because that's what it's worth. And people were saying, you know what? I don't care what it's worth. I want the house. I give it to you. What, 475? What you want? 450? Or 500? 510? What? How much?
Yeah, so, it was like, name your price.
Yeah, that was the situation that we were in. And it wasn't just one person. We would submit offers as a real estate team. We would submit offers and we'd get an email back from the listing agent. We've received 30 offers. 10 of them are over asking. 5 of them have also waived appraisal contingency. So that was the market in 2010. And then to your point, now, no, there's not as much demand because the interest rates have gone up. So no, there aren't 30 people who are trying to buy over asking and also waiving the appraisal. No, there's not. But there is not either regret because our market has gone up, even though demand has gone down. It's kind of evening out. So there isn't 30 people trying to buy the house, but there are still people who want to buy the house. So because of that, demand has lessened, but not to the point where it has impacted price yet.
I remember reading about somebody in Austin. The house was 600 and some change or whatever. They were like, okay, we will pay asking. And the people who were selling the house they were trying to move into, it was all on contingency of selling the first house. And basically they were like, we will buy this house and we will pay for your next house. So they literally paid twice the asking. And I'm like, sometimes people got more money than sense.
That's if you have $1.2 million, because for that, it would have to be cash because no bank is going to.
Yeah, no, it's cash.
There's
no bank is going to sign off on that.
Right. So then if you have $1.2 million in cash, you're going to give away because you're saying that they didn't rent it to those people. It's not like they bought it and then you can live there. They bought it for them. Like they just gave them $600,000.
Yeah.
No.
It's wild. Do you have any tips for people who have tenants who are not paying as they should?
So yes, I've experienced abandonment, which is they're gone. Your tenants are gone. You're like, wait, where? How? You knock and it opens and it's empty. And also people who won't leave. Then you have to do an eviction. So the best control for tenant not paying is to do the work up front, is to get your background check, is to get your pay stubs, to get your references, to do all of those things to ensure that you don't have issues with that tenant down the road. That's the best way.
Yeah, I would take abandonment over having to do evictions.
I
Evictions are
know.
not fun.
I know. Yeah.
Not fun. Okay, I don't know if you can answer this question that Jess has. Hypothetically, if somebody from Florida moved to Portugal who was in real estate, and I guess they want to do that in the new place, how would they start?
So, it sounds like they're talking about investing, not being a realtor. They're like being a real estate
Okay.
investor. And the only thing that I know about Portuguese real estate is that they have been cracking down on Airbnbs. So I follow Artist Journey, and they're over there on YouTube. They're there with the Airbnb. So they mentioned that there was some issues um, with that. And then they also mentioned there was issues with purchasing. I don't remember all of it, but there are certain countries have rules around who can purchase and how. So it's America ain't, but you can buy it. You can be from anywhere and you can buy it. So other countries they're like, no, ma'am, our properties are for us, and that other logic that you got over there is why the properties are so expensive, and now our citizens can't afford it. So I think if you're going over to Portugal and you're wanting to be an investor, from even before you go, you can research the laws around purchasing, and I believe that it's different than here.
Yes. If somebody watching this is very interested in real estate or real estate in Portugal, whether as an investment or buying it as a primary residence, um, November 3rd through the 5th is the Move to Portugal Summit. It is being co-hosted by Blacksit Global and our Black Utopia. And they are going to have two ladies talking specifically about real estate. One of them who bought a building, like an apartment building, and somebody else who bought an individual flat. So if that is of interest to you, this is where I would be week after next or next week. I don't know. Time is meaningless right now. Okay. F Doctor had a couple of questions about land appraisals. She has to get the land appraised. Any tips on finding a reliable appraiser? And is there a preferred time to have an appraisal done?
You generally have an appraisal done after your inspection, just because they're expensive and you don't want to. By expensive, I mean they're like $500-$600, but that's an expensive price for something that's just a couple of hours and it's just one piece in all of the due diligence that you have to do.
Is it different if we're talking about just the lot versus something already built?
I'm not sure. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what the difference in price would be. But that's
like
also
the process is that, because you were saying that it would be done after the inspection.
Yes. So after you do your due diligence on the inspection and you ensure that this is something you want to move forward with, because there's an inspection window in the beginning of your sales contract. So you do the inspection there and you have whoever you want to have come out. And at that stage, you may say, I want to move forward. If you still want to move forward, then generally the next step is an appraisal. And if it's financing, it's hired through your lender. So you were saying, where do you find one? If you're financing, it's through your lender. If you're not financing and you're purchasing cash, then you can ask the lender which company they use and which company they use for their own clients. They can tell you which company they because it's outsourced. They don't do it themselves. They outsource a company. Or you can ask a trusted real estate agent or realtor, and they will have people that they've been in contact with through working, then they can know an appraiser in your area.
Okay. Okay. Um, so you, I don't know, did we tell the people what you do?
Yeah, I started with I'm a licensed broker in Palm Beach County in South Florida. And so we focus primarily on residential properties, so condos, townhouses, single family. That's really our bread and butter where we focus. And we can go, pretty much we're licensed for the entire state of Florida. So if there is someone who was interested there, we can help them as well.
Okay. Okay. And so, um, trying to think of what else I wanted to say, but I don't remember. So, um, thank you for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge on this particular subject. Based off of the comments I'm seeing in the chat, everybody has enjoyed it, because a lot of the ladies here are looking at ways to increase their overall wealth, so that they can, free up some time and live the life that they want. And like I said, while real estate is not the thing for me, I definitely see the value and the potential. It's just not the thing for me. We have one question that got squeezed in that I do want to, because you just said you are a broker, and we talked earlier about the difference between a realtor and an agent. What's the difference between a realtor and a broker?
So a broker owns or a broker is just a higher license realtor. So they could be a broker agent where they're a broker and they're working as a realtor, or they could be a broker where they are the owner of the brokerage, meaning that they have agents working under them, or they have realtors working for their team. So it's used. It can be like you can be a sales associate broker where you're still selling, or you could be a broker who is working with agents on their brokerage.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, for graciously sharing your time and your knowledge with us tonight. As I told everybody at the top of the hour, that I probably won't see y'all on Wednesday night for about a month. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I am going to be wrong, and maybe I am going to have solid internet in all the places I'm going to be, but I make no promises. So, it'll be a little while probably before we go live again on a Wednesday. But thank y'all for coming to hang out. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.